Sure, you're going to hear in about 10 seconds. So we're back live. I believe I have attached it to the correct microphone and it should work. If you know anybody watching out there in the village, if they can hear, they'd let us know. That'd be great.
Okay, we're back live. So if you would introduce yourself at 5 minutes again.
My name's Sue McKinley. I'm a resident of Georgetown. I want to address a couple of items brought to the attention of the citizens of Georgetown by Councilman Steve Wolf regarding Councilwoman Nancy Montgomery. As you know, we are here because Steve and Councilman Mike Mace believe she has violated the council oath of office and rules of council. Although attempts have been made to see what the specifics of those charges are, that information has yet to be shared by Steve or Mike. First, Steve stated in his roundtable presentation at the last council meeting that Nancy texted, and I quote, again and again and again, end quote, regarding the text that violated the sunshine rule. I have copies of that text, and as you will see, this is not true. Nancy texted once, Councilman Jeremy Varner texted once, and Steve texted twice. Anyone wanting a copy of that text, see me, and I will be happy to give you a copy. Why Steve would say something that could so easily be proved is unknown. So in my opinion, what all this boils down to is the simple fact that Steve and Mike do not like Nancy and want her off council. Nancy was elected to her seat by citizens of this village that agree with her leadership and have put their faith in her expressing how they feel about issues and council addresses. The democratic election process allows for this to happen, and thankfully it does. There's no benefit to any community in having all like-minded people sitting at the same table. Without substantiated and concrete charges, what else could this be about? This brings me to my second point. Steve used this kind of tactic to remove 2 other people from council and worked diligently to attempt to remove our police chief. How do I know this? In a text dated June 9, 2022, Steve said, and I quote, if I got Buddy and Jenny to quit, and now I get Rob to quit, I deserve Councilman of the Decade Award, end quote. Again, I have copies of those for those that want one. So you see, this is how Steve handles disagreements and differing opinions. Anyone that has been on a board or council knows that you may not agree with other members. You may not like their opinion on matters, but you must respect that they were elected and or appointed, and you learn to work with that person. What's next, Steve and Mike? You going after Kelly, Jeremy, Art, Joe, Rob, perhaps Dale again? In my opinion, it's time you learned that there are 6 members of this council and you only control you. Please stop trying to control the makeup of this council and move forward solving real issues facing this community. Oh, and by the way, Steve, I am here as one of, quote, several, end quote, people that reached out to Nancy regarding the post Captain Staggs posted. I also personally know of 3 others that reached out to her, so yes, there were several. Thank you.
Thank you. Are there others wish to come up? Like Barb? If you would please introduce yourself to our streaming audience in 5 minutes again.
My name is Barb Veros. I've been a resident of the village for 43 years now. I would like to share some thoughts. I have seen Councilperson Montgomery to be a hardworking member of the council. She was instrumental in our village obtaining a senior playground, dog park, splash pad, and utilizing the Bicentennial Park. She currently is working on a grant to refresh our basketball courts, and she obtained grants for these improvements and worked hard to raise the matching funds so those improvements would incur no cost to the village. Councilperson Wolf stated in his opinion that Councilperson Montgomery has an agenda. Yet I have spent the last 2 days listening to meetings from January to now, and I feel that multiple council persons have agendas or pet projects, and that she is being singled out for asking questions. I disagree that Councilperson Montgomery has created controversies. I see multiple members who have differing opinions, have had intense discussions, In my opinions, it seems again as if she is being punished for not being in agreement with everyone else on every occasion. As regards Nancy being contacted, I'll share a personal experience I went through when I was a manager. I had an employee who was having issues with another employee, serious issues, but because that person tended to speak to me every day in my office at the time they started work, felt that she could not come to me and was not comfortable coming to me. Ultimately, once someone else cued me into what was going on, the things were investigated and were significantly resolved with a firing. People contact those that they are comfortable with. And then in regards to something else that was just said here, and despite all these allegations of harassment, where are the people who are harassed? Has one of them gotten up to speak yet? I hear, again, allegations, but I see nothing that actually shows that it happened. I feel that the push to remove Councilperson Montgomery is an overreaction to an action that she has taken, acknowledgement that she was wrong, she's apologized, and I feel that she, like everyone, has been made aware again of the Sunshine and Ethic laws, and I urge you to find your way to work together for the betterment of our village. Thank you all, council, for your service.
Thank you. Are there others that would like to speak? Susan? And if you would, please introduce yourself to our streaming audience, and you have 5 minutes.
Minutes. I don't think I'll need 5 minutes. Are both of these on? Okay. My name is Susan Bean. I have lived in this adopted village of mine for 22 years. And at one time I became a member of the council. And during that time we had a vacancy. And we had asked applicants for a position in that place to submit a resume. Now, resume is commonly used now in business. And honestly, I feel that if Nancy had been born in a different place and at a different time, she might be a CEO because she has exceptional talent. I've never seen resumes from the rest of you, so I can't say. I do know some things by rumor and gossip, but I'm not going to go there. But at the time of this meeting, we had several resumes submitted, and we got a chance to see them. Do you remember in the first grade, you got a tablet with real wide spaces, and it was kind of cheap paper, and you got a big fat pencil so you could write, your first words? I remember that, and it was 75 years ago. It was a very big deal in my life. So at the time of this replacement, we received resumes from Nancy and from another person, a young man. I don't remember the rest of the applicants. I particularly remember Nancy because she had about a 9-page resume of her time in the Felicity school system, during which she served as a teacher, a librarian, an IT person, and I think a general go-to person. She had obtained $1 million in grants for her school. At the same time, this young man, who's probably typical of many young men in Georgetown, submitted a sheet of that tablet paper, with the wide spaces, that had been written on with the big pencil. And he explained that he just wanted to be on the council. but in such a primitive way, such an unprofessional way, it was comical. So I'm here tonight to say that I fear that the council is about to throw away someone of enormous talent. Nancy may not always agree with people. People may not always agree with her, but then I know that people do not always agree with you, Steve, or you, Mike, or you, Kelly. I remember some disagreements that we had, and I apologize for it. It just is a sad, sad time for Georgetown, because honestly, we don't have, every person on the street does not have the talent that is at the end of the table. We have many good people. Many of them are here tonight to advocate for her retention as a council member. I really don't understand what the issue is. I don't know why it's been blown to this level of significance. I heard the statement by the police chief. I believe that was, what's his name? Rob's writing. He writes so well. I wish he would do a newspaper column. But what he had to say, much of it could have applied to himself. And we don't have to go there either. So that's all I have to say. I advocate that you retain Nancy in her position. I advocate that you become more tolerant of other people's points of view, and that we continue with the really important business of building Georgetown into a first-class village. We're on a precipice right now. We can go either way. We can become great. Georgetown, I'm not going to tell you what it is. Georgetown has a unique, what should I say, attribute, a unique condition that might be of great importance to some future business here. And if you want to, I'll tell you afterwards, but not right now.
20 seconds, Susan.
20 seconds? I used it all up. And I thank you for listening.
Thank you. Are there others out that would like to have a comment? Okay.
All of these canes, it looks like Orthopedic East, but we'll do the best we can.
Again, introduce yourself, please.
My name is Jan Staubach, and I'm the village resident. I'll be real brief. I don't look at this as an infringement of any law that's worthy of all this. It's a power grab, but and it won't stop with Montgomery. There are a couple of things that have to be taken into consideration. First of all, she was not the only participant in this violation. Furthermore, we chose to live in the village. We had a home here in the village, and when we sold it, we looked for another home in the village because we appreciate what's being done here. Now, from a real estate standpoint, if I decide to list my home, a real estate person is going to be concerned about a couple of things. One is what is the village like? What kind of a school system do you have? What kind of amenities are there in the village? Aside from that, any business that wants to participate nearby, even not within the village, is still going to look at the village. What's your school system like? How does your council operate? You know, what stores are available? What amenities are available? Now, I consider schools and the amenities to be very important. A business is going to come in and they're going to look at They have families that they employ. Are the families' children going to be well educated? Is there a place for them? And I look at our village park. When we came here, there were a couple of soccer fields out there. Actually, the park didn't even exist, but once it started, we had a couple of soccer fields. Now we have a dedicated senior area out there with exercise stations all around it. We have a great playground. We have a dog park. We have a splash pad going in so that the kids can have something to do during the summer. There's a skate park out there. Almost all of those were placed there by grant money. Mrs. Montgomery is a grant writer. She's responsible for that out there. And I think that needs to be taken into consideration before you decide chopping anybody's heads off around here, because this infraction is very minor when you consider that it involved more than one person, but only one person is being prosecuted here. And all I'm saying is that we need a village council that can get along. I know that for years, my husband and myself and Jeremy watered plants in the village every weekend. That was our job. We were proud of it, proud of the village, and happy to help it. And it's become harder and harder to do it with all the discord here. So I think, first of all of you were elected by the village. You need to all work together. Just think about it before you do something that we're all going to regret.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Are there others that would like to address council? There being none, I guess we will go into the next portion of this, the special session. I'd like to introduce a person that's...
Yeah.
Oh, okay, if you would start again. I would like to introduce someone that has agreed to be a moderator, a referee, so to speak, for tonight's proceedings. Her name is Magistrate Carla Birch. She comes from Hamilton County, Claremont County, Hamilton County. And if you wish to come up, you can say a little bit about your bio if you so desire, and then we can go on with our meeting.
Yes.
Yes, she's got one right
Well,
here.
that you would have seen free and everything down there. Mhm. And Dale, could you slide her the house mic? Yeah, thank you.
Is it on?
There we go.
Good afternoon. My name is Carla Birch. I am an attorney magistrate. I recently retired from the Hamilton County courts. I practice mainly in Hamilton County. I don't live in the village. I don't practice in the village. Hopefully, I'm about as neutral as it gets. We have a court reporter here tonight whose job it is to maintain and process the record. The only way she can do that is if people are orderly in terms of expressing their opinions or testifying. So occasionally I'm going to be looking over at the court reporter to see if she's in distress. Because she's going to be trying to write down everything that's said. And if we all talk at the same time, it's going to make her job impossible. And we don't want that kind of an impression leaving the hearing today. So I will say that the removal hearing is in session. I have tried hundreds of civil cases or disputes. And in many venues, emotion is an asset. It's helpful, except court. and hearings. And I'll tell you why. Because if this is your one chance to convey your opinions and evidence, you want to present the best case you can. If you get so mad, you can't think straight, or you become so emotional, it really is a detriment to your own case. The issue isn't, do you feel deeply about your community? I assume everybody that's here and takes the time to come feels deeply about their community. I grew up in an area very similar to Georgetown. Your governments and the way you do business is literally the backbone of this country. So we all need to keep our emotions in check. We're going to give, hopefully, everybody an opportunity to present their case and be heard. And at the appropriate time, there will be a vote by your elected officials. The issue today that your council will be voting on is the removal of one of your council members. I apologize for my voice. I have a tremor disease and it is in the voice box. So try to keep my voice up. When I was in criminal court, defendants who were before me thought that my voice meant that I was afraid. It didn't. So keep that in mind. Okay, so the issue is removal of one of your council people. Because it's a civil issue versus a criminal issue, it's a civil disagreement, we're going to use the framework for a civil trial. And most of you have probably never been involved in a civil trial, so I'm just going to lay out how the framework goes. The petitioners, in this case, Mr. Wolf and Mays, they brought the case, so to speak, so they will go first in presenting their evidence. I will swear in the witnesses. The petitioners go first. They have the opportunity to give me what's called an opening argument, which is a very brief, if they choose to do it, a very brief picture of what they intend to show. Ms. Montgomery will have the same opportunity to offer a picture. It's called an opening argument, a picture about what she thinks her evidence will show. Once those opening arguments are in, then it's the petitioners, Mr. Mays and Wolf. It's their job to present any evidence they think is relevant. At the appropriate time, if Ms. Montgomery has questions for their witnesses or whatever evidence they produce, I'll tell you and ask you, this is your chance to, as they say on TV, cross-examine. Ask them questions. You will have an opportunity to present your side when your half of the case starts. So in the petitioner's half of the case, they'll present their evidence, cross-examination, any documents, any witnesses will be called. At the appropriate time when they think they have produced all the evidence they wish to put before council, they will say they rest or they're finished. At that time, I'll turn to Ms. Montgomery and ask you, Ms. Montgomery, do you have any witnesses, documents, testimony, evidence that you wish to proceed? At the appropriate time, I'll ask the gentleman, do you have any questions to cross-examine? When her evidence is finished and all the evidence is before council, both parties can make a short statement about why they feel they have succeeded in their case based on the evidence, and Ms. Montgomery will offer a brief statement about why they have not succeeded in removal. And that is based on the evidence submitted, sworn testimony, documents, things like that. I want to read to you the relevant section in your charter. So it is section 3.06, dealing with removal. The mayor and council shall be the sole judges of the qualifications of members of council. By 2/3 vote of the council and the mayor inclusive, the council and the mayor may expel or remove any member of council for failure to meet or maintain qualification of office, for violation of this person's oath of office, or conviction of a felony or other crime involving moral turpitude, or for persistent failure to abide by the rules of council. Any such action taken by the council and mayor shall be of immediate effect. Charges may be brought against a member of council by the mayor and one council member, or by any two members of council who notify the accused member in writing of the charges against that member. The mayor and council shall consider the charge at a public meeting, which shall occur not less than 15 days after written notice is delivered to the accused member of the charges. If the accused member cannot be located after reasonable effort, written notice of the charges and the date, time, and location of the public meeting to be held by the mayor and council to consider the charges shall be provided by public notice in accordance with section 12.07 of this charter. The meeting shall be held not earlier than 7 days after the date of the last publication. The accused member may be represented by an attorney, shall have the opportunity to be heard, present evidence, and examine under oath any witnesses. The accused member shall not vote on any matters relating to the charges or the removal of that member. If removed, a council member could not be appointed by council, but may run for election after 4 years. So that's kind of the framework that we're dealing with, and that's what we're going to take evidence toward. Once the evidence is concluded, I'll give council an opportunity to discuss the evidence. Ultimately, there will be a vote, and we'll see where that goes. All right, so anybody who intends to testify in this matter, stand and raise your right hand. Anybody else who intends to
What
testify?
about witnesses we're gonna call?
Stand. Any witnesses that are out there
Mike
that,
Mays. Mike Mays.
all right,
Oh, you're gonna call me?
okay. Anybody else, any other witnesses out there that'll be testifying and submitting evidence to the issue of removal? Okay, raise your right hand. Do you solemnly swear that the testimony you're about to give is the truth, the whole truth, nothing but the truth? So help you God.
I do.
Thank you. All right, and now we are to the point of opening arguments. Petitioners, Mr. Wolf, Mr. Mays, do you wish to make an opening argument?
I do.
All right, sir, you may proceed. Give your name for the record.
My name is Steve Wolf.
Thank you. What do you intend to present as evidence?
My own testimony
Okay,
and some various clips taken from council meetings. That's actually a list of the things that I will be presenting as evidence. So if you, I don't know how specific you need me to be, but it's a series. Okay.
well, I tell you what we're going to do is we're going to deem this document as plaintiffs or petitioners A, A is in apple. We're going to mark it as Exhibit A.
Okay.
And that is a list of the things you intend to offer.
Yes, ma'am.
Okay. So it's a list of documents and files petitioner intends to offer. Now, once we get to the actual evidence, we'll mark it as individually as a different exhibit for each.
Okay.
Okay, so go ahead, proceed.
Section 3.06 of Georgetown's Village Charter deals with the removal of a council person from office. This section outlines 4 reasons wherein charges for removal may be brought against a village council member. Tonight, I don't feel as compelled to prove these examples of misconduct committed by the accused to each of you, as much as I just need to remind you of some of them. You witnessed them personally and have firsthand knowledge of them. Rather than proving that they happened, my intention this evening will be to remind you that they happened. Many of the violations of which I will show happened in plain sight. The offenses committed by Nancy Montgomery fall into the category of
Let me just stop you for just a second. So your opening argument is just a big picture view. Then we will move to your testimony, which will go through each document. So give me a big picture here. You intend to produce testimony documents that will remind people of various, in your mind, various things that occurred that qualify for removal.
I do, and I would like to at least have the opportunity to specifically list those in the opening argument. We've heard.
Just do it briefly if you
Okay.
can.
Well, let me advance to that slide. So we have code of conduct violations, specifically misuse of power of a council person, specifically holding power or influence over an employee. And I'll just note that the P1, P3, that nomenclature would indicate if you go to the code of conduct violations, page 1, paragraph 3. I won't read those for each one, but making village decisions by yourself, failure to practice civility in council meetings, being extremely disrespectful to public speakers at council meetings, and personal attacks on public speakers at council meetings. Those are code of conduct violations that I intend to show tonight. In addition to the code of conduct violations, I also intend to show charter violations that were that happened. Those would include causing deviation from section 5.04, responsibilities of administrator. I will show that this was done on at least 2 occasions, and section 9.05, the open meetings violations. So where the charter gives us a few different headings that somebody can be, I intend to show some from each of those. Would this be a good time to list them specifically, like time, date that the charges happened?
It's up to you.
I would like to do that. I've heard that there hasn't been enough specificity leading up to this, so I would like to do that. Examples of specific acts of violation of her oath of office or of breaking rules of council or of breaking rules of charter would include directing the relocation of a village gateway sign to a location that is in conflict with the agreement signed between the Village of Georgetown, Rumpke Waste Incorporated, Legacy Incorporated, that was approved by council on July 27, 2021, which became Village Resolution 1258. That would be a violation of the Code of Conduct, page 2, paragraph 3. I will also show tonight that at some point between July 27, 2021 and February 9, 2023, she directed Administrator Art Owens to tell Solicitor Joe Braun to enter into negotiations with Rumpke Incorporated to amend Resolution 1258 to forego the granting of an easement for a gateway sign and instead use the $20,000 referenced in the agreement for payment towards a splash pad. It's a violation of Code of Conduct 2, paragraph 3. I will also show video evidence tonight of her conduct on October 27, 2022 at a October 27th, 2022 council meeting, wherein she accused a local business owner who was participating in the public speaking portion of a council meeting of improperly keeping something that he possessed that she felt belonged to the village. She did this twice, once even after being told by the village solicitor that the village had no right to the property, to which she suggested that the speaker give to the village. This would be a violation of our code of conduct, page 5, paragraph 6. On April 17th, she directed the village administrator to contact council members in an attempt to call an emergency council meeting on April 25th to fill a vacant council seat before the regularly scheduled meeting on April 27th. She did this in spite of the fact that at the previous council meeting on April 13th, council had not, as a group, discussed any parameters or methods for which they would use to fill the empty seat. This is a violation of Code of Conduct, page 2, paragraph 3. Also, on March 29th of this year, she initiated a conversation that violated the Open Meetings Act. That would be a violation of our oath of office. And finally, she was dishonest when she stated, and I will show video evidence of the statement, she was dishonest when she stated in a February 10th, 2022 council meeting that she has, quote, no vendetta against the police department or any member of the police department. I will present testimony tonight that contradicts that statement, which would be a violation of the oath of offices. Your Honor, in lieu of witnesses, I will be calling no witnesses tonight. My understanding is that witnesses in hearings are typically called to testify to events that to testify to events that they witness and bring back those stories to people that didn't witness them. And in our situation here, I say that council members are the witnesses and have been the witnesses themselves for the improper conduct of which I allege. Some things that I think that you may hear tonight, I think that you've actually already heard some tonight. You may you may hear claims of an unfair hearing. After being charged on April 18th, Nancy Montgomery did reach out on separate text messages to both me and Mike Mays, Joe Braun, and Dale Cowhall copied to request of specific charges. I replied to her then, and I maintained the position that she was charged in accordance with the guidelines set forth in our charter. I did nothing more or nothing less than what is required of our charter. I ask that you not be swayed, or I predict that you will hear the concept that good deeds excuse bad deeds. You may have heard some of that in the weeks, days, hours, and minutes leading up to this meeting. And I contend to you that good deeds do not cancel out violations committed by council members. I very much agree that Councilperson Montgomery has done many great things for the community. I've been a big cheerleader of the things she's done and praised her repeatedly for those things. But my understanding is that this hearing tonight isn't a teeter-totter exercise where we get to stack up the good things that she's done on one side and any negative things she's done on the other side and see which one holds more weight. I don't think that's what's going on here. Lastly, I believe that you will hear tonight attempts to take your eye off the ball and some diversion tactics specifically aimed at me. And I will say, unfortunately, at times over the past few years, I provided a very easy way in which Nancy Montgomery can attempt to discredit me as an accuser. When I first became a council member, I was very new to the world of politics. I hadn't held a public office of any kind, and I did lean on her for support. There did come a time that I became involved in a disagreement with our chief of police. And as such, I texted some things to her that I now regret. I texted things to her about the chief of police at the time when I was angry at him that were ugly, regrettable things. And I also texted some things about about the mayor who oversees the chief of police. This all came from some silly arguments over a parade. I've since begun working with the police department on the emergency services committee, and I realize I've been wrong in my thinking. I've actually grown to respect and like the folks on the police department. I've put my differences aside with them, and I think this is something that she has shown the inability to do. I've apologized to both Chief Freeland, Chief Staggs, and Mayor Cowhall for making hateful statements in the past. And the reality is I didn't really know them at that time. I believe that my shift from somebody who formerly was adverse with the police to somebody who now works for them is causing much of the antagonism you see here tonight. So my point in saying all that is I believe that there's a possibility you may be shown some of those texts, which I could argue is kind of prejudicial and irrelevant, but I don't want to argue that because I do think that conversations that me and Ms. Montgomery have had in the past should be brought up tonight. And I intend to bring some of those conversations up tonight. So maybe she's planning on showing you some of those texts. Maybe she's not. Maybe she was planning on it. And now that I've already admitted to them, maybe it's less desirable to. I see that as a diversion tactic, and I'll close with saying I ask you not to take your eye off the ball. One person in this room has been formally charged with wrongdoing in accordance with our charter. And that's what I ask you to keep your eye on. If you feel that I've done wrong, you won't need to do this again in 15 days. At the end of seeing the presentation here tonight, any of you, as you had a standing offer to do for the last few weeks, any of you other than you, Ms. Montgomery, are welcome to come to me and ask me to step aside, and I would be glad to do so. That's all I have.
All right, thank you very much. Ms. Montgomery, your opening statement.
Right.
Please.
Many people already know that I used to be a school librarian. In fact, I held that job for more than 30 years of my life. I've spent my whole life around books, short books, long books, good books, boring books. So it shouldn't surprise any of you that I want to start tonight by talking about books and the wisdom that books can teach us. There's a book that will tell you differences are not a failure of humanity. Differences are a test of humanity. And there's another book that will tell you the difference between a flower and a weed is perspective. I would ask you to think about the power of those two messages while I talk about why we are really here tonight. Because I promise you, it's not really about whether I violated the village charter. It's not really about whether I sent a text message I shouldn't have sent. What we're really here about is the wisdom we can learn from the messages in those books I told you about. As a member of Georgetown Village Council, I've had the opportunity to represent the ideas and views of many different residents. I often bring forward ideas people ask me to, even if I don't fully support them. Sometimes I can be convinced to see their position. Sometimes I just can't. That's what elected officials do. We represent all people in our village. At times, I've even found common ground with people I don't always see eye to eye with. Just ask my friend Delbert, who rarely agrees with me, but has the ability to find humor in it and has even made up nicknames for me and helped me out when I hit him up for some very good causes around town. That's called showing respect, and I appreciate when it happens. I will admit that not all residents always agree with me. And while I may not always like that people disagree with me, I still respect the fact that we can agree to disagree. However, that disagreement won't stop me from pursuing the things I'm passionate about. It won't stop me from digging into the things I think are important. I'm passionate about the things I care for. I care for our kids. I care for our grandkids. I care for our parks. I care for our village. It makes me laugh to drive through town and see our fire hydrants painted in wacky ways. You don't see a fire hydrant painted like SpongeBob SquarePants in Mount Orab. I like the colorful flowers in the courthouse square. Some people just don't. These are easy things to find agreement with each other about. But sometimes I question things, and this creates disagreement. I'm not afraid to ask the hard questions. If you've watched a village council meeting online or attended one in person, you already know this. Is someone qualified for a job? Can we really afford that? Do we need to do business with that person, or are they just a good friend of someone at the village? How did that accident happen? Was there a motive behind them doing that? This creates differences of opinion. Let me go back to my books. They remind us differences are not a failure of humanity. Differences are a test of humanity. The difference between a flower and a weed is perspective. It's the humanity that allows us to find respect in our differences of opinion. It's that humanity that allows us to still laugh with each other and find common ground when we disagree. But that's not why we're here tonight. We're here tonight because two of my fellow council members want to take our differences and use them to silence me. They want to silence me and my opinions. They want to silence the many people who call me, text me, email me, and stop me at IGA and tell me something they want me to have council look into. They want to silence ideas people ask me to share for them. They want to silence anyone who asks questions and doesn't agree with their perspective. As I said, these differences are not a failure, but rather a test. As an educator, I know a lot about tests, but you don't have to be an educator to know about tests. Tests can be hard, but tests can also be easy. I think this one will be easy. At the end of this removal hearing, my fellow members of council and our mayor are going to be asked to cast a vote. It's really a test. They're going to be asked to cast a vote to decide, did I violate my oath of office? Did I break a law? Did I commit an ethical violation? Did I do something so outrageous and so awful that the vote taken by a resident should be silenced and I should be removed from the service of the office I hold? Residents should be offended in the way Councilmember Mays and Councilmember Wolf have gone about it. I've asked both Councilmember Mays, Councilmember Wolf for specifics as to what they believe I did to deserve all of this. Councilmember Wolf told me to refer to the generalizations on the removal paper he presented me and to not contact him again about the matter. Councilmember Mays would not answer me at all. Really? I didn't think that's how our system of justice works. But I'm here not only because I respect our charter, but because I know I've done nothing to deserve the way they are treating me through this process. You're going to hear that they view certain departments and certain people differently than I do. As you hear the evidence Councilmember Mays, Councilmember Wolf will present, I would suggest this to you. Is it a flower or is it a weed? Or is it just really a difference of perspective? I would bet we have all seen something in our garden that we thought was pretty, and someone else walked up and told us it was just a weed. After hearing all the evidence they present, I would suggest to you that what you're going to hear is that I have a different perspective than they do. They didn't like it. In fact, they hate it. They hate it so much they want you to kick me off council for them rather than hearing what I have to say. I ask you to listen to what is presented tonight. Look at what they purport as so-called evidence of wrongdoing or violations. I suggest to you that it will not be a breach of my office. What you will hear is disagreement. A disagreement about our police and the things they do. A disagreement about our priorities and what they should be. A disagreement about whether someone's doing a good job or not doing a good job. What you will hear are differences, not a failure of humanity. What you will hear are differences that challenge their views, a test of our humanity. I should not be removed because I say it's a flower and they say it's a weed. Thank you.
Thank you. All right. Mr. Wolf and Mays, you are up for your case in chief.
This is Resolution 1258, and I'm going to ask for help from somebody with some technical. Okay, maybe it's no. This is Resolution 1258. This resolution was passed by the Village Council on July 27, 2021. This resolution includes an agreement wherein several elements, but the main part of the agreement is Rumpke would take possession of a road owned by the Village of Georgetown, annex a small strip of property into the village, and demolish and there would be a small house demolished that was located on the property in exchange for a payment not to exceed $20,000 for the installation of a Welcome to Georgetown Gateway sign and an easement of property for said sign. Again, this agreement was voted on and approved by the full Village Council in 2021. Over 1 year after this resolution went into effect, on October 27th, 2022 to be exact, a member of the Cemetery Board of Trustees, Mr. Kelly Hessler, came to a council meeting to discuss a new Welcome to Georgetown sign that had recently been installed in the town cemetery. It became evident in the council discussion that night that this sign was the gateway sign mentioned in this resolution on the screen, and Nancy Montgomery indicated that an ad hoc sign committee had made the decision to abandon the idea of installing the sign in the location approved in the Resolution 1258 agreement and had decided to have it installed in the cemetery instead. This council meeting on October 27th, 2022 was the very first time that I officially heard that the decision had been made to have the sign installed in the location other than the one agreed upon in the resolution 1 year earlier. In that same council meeting, Council President Kelly Cornett also indicated that this was the first time that she had heard about the sign not being installed, where it was originally indicated that it should be installed in Resolution 1258. Mike Mays also said it was the first time he had heard about it. Because I did not want to embarrass him about it in the actual council meeting, I chose to wait until a few days later and ask our village administrator, Art Owens, about who gave the order to have the sign installed in the cemetery. He told me that he had been contacted by Nancy Montgomery, who had told him that it was a decision of the ad hoc committee to move the sign. Now, I want to be very clear about this because this theme might reoccur a few times throughout the evening. I do not at all hold Mr. Owens at fault for doing what he was being told to do. I don't believe that in a situation wherein someone on village council is giving a directive to a village employee to do something, that you blame the paid employee. But our council code of conduct is very clear that council people should not be giving directives such as this. Whether or not Mr. Owens complied with her request, either from forgetting that a several-month-old resolution spoke of putting the sign somewhere else, or out of duress from being directed from the village official to do something, is something that I don't care to speculate on. He shouldn't have been put in that situation. The issue is that at some point, Nancy Montgomery did in fact direct Art Owens to do something that was in conflict with something that the entire Georgetown Village Council had previously voted upon. If a council member or a chair of an ad hoc committee wanted to do something that was in conflict with something that the entire council had previously voted upon, that person could have brought that topic up before the entire village council. Take a second and show our village code of conduct. This is our village code of conduct. It's several pages long, but if you just go the very first page of our code of conduct, if you go down to paragraph 3, it says, council members must remember that the power of council lies in council as a whole entity. No individual council member has the power to speak or act on the village's behalf, has power or influence over any employee, or the power to make decisions by himself or herself. Furthermore, that's our code of conduct. Besides that, our village charter states in section 3.05, section A, that the village council can pass resolutions, but says nothing about a single council member or even a subcommittee chair being able to alter those resolutions on their own. Need more? Section 5.04 of the village charter says that the administrator shall be responsible to the mayor for the administration of all affairs placed in the administrator's charge by this charter and council, not individual council members. Closely related to this topic is another topic that another improper act by Councilperson Montgomery that also involves improperly using her position of power
to give direction to the village administrator and or the village solicitor. And I believe,
Let me stop you just a second.
yes,
This court, are we doing all right? All right.
Need to
Please
slow
stop.
down.
Yeah,
Do I
a
need to
little
slow
bit,
down?
but
Okay.
let me also ask, Ms. Montgomery, do you have any cross-examination as to this issue?
Yes.
Now, you're going to tell your side when it's your turn, but do you have specific cross-examination as to this?
Yes.
Okay. All right.
So,
So let me ask you all, would you prefer to wait to the end of his presentation to cross-examine, or should we stop after each particular allegation and give you a chance to cross at that point?
since I wasn't given my charges, I had no idea what was coming. I'm totally unprepared for that. So I can only write so fast. I would prefer to deal with each one as they're brought up. I think that's only fair.
no, that's fine.
All right, so do you have any questions for him? Remember, you can tell your side in a minute, but this is specifically cross-examination.
Do you not remember when you first came on council, Mr. Wolf? You and I, they were dealing with the original signs that were discussed in the Rumpke contract. And the council had never voted on those signs, ever. And,
So your question is,
Yeah.
okay,
is it true that council never voted on the signs?
I don't recall if council voted on some signs when I first came on to council. Is that the question?
on the big granite signs.
On the great big granite signs, do I recall that we voted on those?
Do you recall if they had ever been voted on before?
I don't recall.
Okay. Do you recall that?
You're referring to a different signage and you're asking.
Yes,
and
this is the contract with Rumpke that he is saying
that you violated.
that
So
I
you're
violated
saying,
as
has
chair of the ad
council always
hoc.
voted
Yes.
on?
Are you aware that the previous Community Development Committee made all decisions on those signs?
I'm not aware of that.
So would you consider that a precedence concerning signs if the previous CDC made all decisions where they were going to be, how much they cost, what they were going to look like with absolutely no approval or input by council? Would you call that a precedence? Could you see where there could be some confusion for the ad hoc signage committee on the process involved?
My hand to God, I don't understand your question.
Okay. You were saying that the ad hoc signage committee could not make decisions and could not tell the administrator where the sign should be or anything about the sign. Do you not see the fact that the previous community development committee made all decisions about the sign, the cost of it, where they're going to go, everything about them, and told the then administrator with no council approval or input? Do you not see that as a precedence and perhaps why our committee was confused as to the process after the previous committee's process?
That was the longest question.
I'm sorry.
So the point is, she's asking.
If I'm aware that previously, am I permitted to restate as a question back to make sure I'm understanding it right? Am I aware that previous to me being on council
Yes.
okay. Am I aware that previous to me being on council, that ad hoc sign committees made decisions about where to put signs?
It wasn't the ad hoc. They didn't have an ad hoc sign committee. It was the community development committee. It was,
Were you aware
I
that a
would-
community development?
I had-
committee
You were
made-
not aware of that.
No.
Okay,
That's it.
that's it.
Okay.
All right.
Okay.
Next issue.
Yes, ma'am. So, and this issue is closely related to the issue I just discussed. And I believe that it involves, again, improperly using her position of power to give direction to the village administrator and or the village solicitor. The way it piggybacks is I kind of believe that it's the reason maybe why the sign was moved. At some point between July 27th, 2021 and February 9th, 2023, Councilperson Montgomery told Administrator Owens to tell Solicitor Braun to renegotiate with Rumpke the deal previously agreed upon in Resolution 1258. How do we know this? Joe Braun tells us this in a council meeting on February 29th. I will play you a clip from that council meeting. The clip is a bit lengthy, but it's necessary to show in fairness, to show the full context of the conversation. You will see me talking at length in this council meeting with Solicitor Braun about the specifics of the proposed resolution to amend 1258. But I ask that you pay close attention to the part near the end of the conversation where Mike Mays speaks up and asks Solicitor Braun about who directed him to go to renegotiate a deal with Rumpke.
February 9th of 23.
This council meeting, yes.
Is that February 9th?
Yes,
Okay, the February 9th meeting he's playing a clip from will be called Plaintiff's Exhibit B. Go ahead.
Okay, yes. If I can find it.
We'll go on to page 121. It's the payment listings. I'm sorry? Okay, we have two. I'm sorry. So before we go to that, we have an ordinance that, no, we did not. What's that? 1330 is the annual budget. Solicitor Braun has another ordinance that he's prepared.
The second for you is a resolution authorizing an amendment to the agreement that you may recall that we reached with Rumpke and their other entity under the team. This related to something we talked about a lot in our council meeting regarding the village sign, and the fact that our previous agreement with Rumpke gave us an easement for a village gateway sign and also the payment of $20,000, if you recall, to the village. That was to go towards the actual paying for the sign to be constructed and installed. I can't remember when, I think that was in 20, or I have the agreement here. We authorized that agreement back in, I think it's important. You all, it was a lengthy agreement that we authorized in June of 21. So this amendment then will change that, and it will no longer give us an easement to put a sign in front of Rumpke, and the $20,000 payment will be directed to the cost of the proposed splash pad in the park. And I also provide a provision that in the event, for any reason, that splash pad does not go forward, it allows the council to designate it for any other municipal purpose. So that's the change. Rumpke has already signed off on it. It's pending your approval for adoption.
What point can we discuss this?
Discuss it right now.
Okay. I'll jump right in then. I'm so mad at myself because I left it out in the car. I brought the resolution that we passed originally. Okay. So that went there. It's got some pictures and stuff in it of the easement. So they got buyers with, we tear down a house, we get $20,000 that was originated as a sign, we get an easement to put a sign on. Okay, and that resolution was agreed upon by council previously. I guess I don't understand, I'm I'm cool, and myself, I'm cool with redirecting that $20,000 to the splash pad. But we still got sign. We didn't get that big sign, but we still got sign. And in the previous meeting, we talked about the placement of that sign, and I thought, maybe I heard it wrong, that, and it takes time to do it, so I'm not confirming that you should have had this done by now by any means, but Art had talked about looking at potential other homes that that sign could end up at. Giving away this easement would take one of the choices off of the table. I see no reason when you enter into a transaction, you know, I got something you want, you got something I want, so we agree on some terms, and then we're gonna take something off the table, not a piece of land, an easement for a piece of land. What are they adding to the pot to these people? And, you know, we voted on this, 6 people as being a fair equal deal, equitable for both sides, and now we're gonna forfeit part of our side and get nothing else in return. And so I would have to see this rewritten in such a way that says the $20,000 can be redirected and leave the easement part intact. And maybe at some time we'll figure out that we don't want to ever put any sign there of any type. And then we can let that part go to them. But I see no reason to take it off the table now.
One thing I would point out that you didn't say is that there's a very strategic annexation that's also part of this. There's some property that runs up 68 that they've agreed to annex into the village. That's significant because that will allow us to potentially annex in the future down 68. So I think that was one thing we got out of this. And as you may recall, we were trying to get some other properties to annex in Monkey as well. We did not get those, but this one.
Okay, one second. So we get this annexation, we get $20,000, and we get a potential easement for a sign. And they get a house demolished, and they get buyer's road. Okay.
Remember, the Buyers Road was vacated at our request because we didn't want their trucks coming out on Menlo Pike. So that was something we wanted as well.
Understood.
Okay.
But transactionally, you're right, we're gonna trade this for this, and now we're lessening our side of the deal for no reason.
That was the only reason.
It cost them $0 to bring us an easement. So,
In my negotiations with them, the only way they were willing to redirect the funds to splash pad was to basically say, okay, then you're not gonna be able to put that sign there on our property. I will point out, which I didn't point out to them in negotiations, you can technically still put some signs on their property. They just wouldn't be of the magnitude like the electric and all of that, the lights, that we wanted previously.
that's what I was talking about the things. I read there's 2 different things we were getting from them. $20,000 for a sign and an easement of land. There was actually 2 different staple exhibits. Exhibit 1, okay. It references a tract of land. Exhibit B has a little star that talks about this might be where a sign can go on. This would be where the sign would go on that land.
That is not true.
And even in the language of the document, it talks about an easement of land, an easement for electricity, and it talks about $20,000 for a sign. I don't think because the sign's not there right now, and maybe it'll never be there, that we just would forfeit that easement. I don't like it because we had spirited talk about the sign not being there, which, by the way, I'll shut up in just a second. The original agreement was voted on by 6 people, and as of tonight, 6 people is going to potentially give away the easement of land as part of the original deal. Okay? What's made this even a discussion to give away that piece? So I'm sure people on the other side would say, well, we'll give that away because the sign's not there. That part wasn't ever discussed by the 6 people. So the beginning was, the end was, but this middle chapter here was never discussed by the 6 of us. So everything seems out of order to me. Not like this board's out of order, it just seems like that wasn't done in the right order. And I don't see any reason to cheapen our end of the deal. That's ludicrous when you say they won't give the money, if we're not gonna put the sign there because it's not costing them anything to say you can use that picture there that we're not using for anything else in the world. That's not negotiating in good faith, and I think it needs to be rewritten, and I actually go and ask them to read it at that point. And I feel no urgency to, well, I'm not inclined to think they're gonna vote that way. If you're gonna tell me that, or they're gonna be amenable to that, I don't feel any urgency. We're not breaking ground to splash pad tomorrow. So
If we back out on that, could they actually ask us to make Myers Road a better road or?
No, I think we have an agreement with them that they were gonna give us $20,000 to be spent on a sign, to be spent on a sign. And if they just stick to the deal, we lose $20,000 because we've had a change of policy in this council. At some point, you all change the idea of doing the sign. That's right, and they'll contribute up to $20,000. So you're right, but there was a policy change by this council at some point, or by this village, to not put the sign that was proposed there. It was gonna cost significantly more.
There was never a policy by this council to not put a sign on that piece of property. It doesn't exist. I understand, it doesn't exist. We didn't vote on that.
Or it didn't happen. How about that? Yeah, that's the point. And what I'm telling you is that I negotiated the deal as I was told. And what I will tell you is their position was that that's the deal. So if we want to go back to Rocky, it's just Rocky. I mean, I can go back to them, but I will tell you their specific statement to me was they wanted to wipe out that in exchange for this.
Something tells me you're a really, really, really skilled negotiator. I mean, that blows my mind. If you're selling me on the idea that we were fine with giving you $20,000, if you spent $20,000 with a great big huge sign, the lowest quality piece on the property, with a great big huge sign on, but we're not cool with you putting a smaller sign in that same spot. I prefer you keep less on our property and take that money and build a nice splash pad for kids.
If I were looking into their head, which again, they didn't make the statement, but if you look at how their entrance on 68 has evolved, I think I know the answer to this, which is they ended up putting a flagpole, a sign, they have landscaping around it out there, and my guess, if I was them, is I would say, I don't want to further plug our entrance because it's a distraction from what they put out there. That would be my belief after seeing how
They're telling us they don't want to clutter by having a sign that says you're down on their property.
Yeah.
It's kind of insulting.
I'm just guessing that's why, because there's a lot out there.
You said earlier, somebody instructed you on that handling of that deal. Can you ask who that was?
Yeah, my understanding is, Nancy, that to the administrator, that you told Art that you wanted that prepared and done. And I can also state that I did bring this up at a prior council meeting. Yeah, it was done at a committee meeting. At a committee.
So,
It was right there at the end of the clip. Nancy Montgomery, either singularly or speaking for a subcommittee, which is not a quorum of council, has zero authority to tell Art Owens to direct village solicitor Braun to go renegotiate an agreement that the whole village council had already approved and voted upon. Again, if Ms. Montgomery felt that she wanted to alter the agreement already voted upon by council, she should have brought that request to the entire body of council in a formal council meeting. She has no more authority to, by herself, call up the village administrator and ask for the renegotiation of a contract than any other single resident in Georgetown. A random person living on Elm Street in Georgetown cannot call up the village administrator and direct them to take action that is in conflict with a previously passed resolution. The grocery bagger at IGA cannot call up the village administrator and do this. I can't call up the village administrator and have him direct the solicitor to go renegotiate something that council's already voted on. Guess what? Even the mayor of Georgetown can't do this. And to his credit, he wouldn't try to do this. This was a blatant misuse of power. It totally undermines the process of meeting as a council and voting on a topic where the majority rules. That's all of that topic.
Short, concise question.
Short questions, promise. Did the council vote that night?
Yes, they did.
How did they vote?
They voted for it. I voted for it because the damage was already done. It made sense to give the money away because you had already moved the sign. You had already
broken the resolution and moved the sign. So it was like, what's the point now? Might as well do it. You're welcome. The next topic is what I will refer to as the Kelly Hessler incident. On October 27th, 2022, Mr. Hessler came to speak publicly at a village council meeting. Now, as council members, wanting public participation in our council meetings is something that we should all desire. Our council code of conduct instructs us how we should do it. Let me refer back to that document. Maybe. This is really hard to do. So there is a section within our code of conduct that speaks to how to deal with the public. And allow me to read it real quick. Council and public meetings. Practice civility, professionalism, and decorum in discussions and debate. Difficult questions, tough challenges to a particular point of view, and criticism of ideas and information are legitimate elements of a free democracy in action. This does not allow, however, council members to make belligerent, personal, impertinent, slanderous, threatening, abusive, or disparaging remarks or comments, No shouting or physical actions that could be construed as threatening will be tolerated. Council members should conduct themselves in a professional manner at all times. Stop right there. As an example, I had people speaking from the public tonight that were very upset with me, and I think I smiled at them the whole time and thanked them for speaking when they were done. Now, let's be fair. I will be the very first to say that probably all members of our village council, with the exception of Jeremy Varner, who has the best manners of anybody on council, has had interactions with people coming to speak to council wherein we may have ran slightly afoul of this section of the code of conduct. And I will speak to that shortly. But first, I would like to focus on this particular exchange and how it differed from any other I have ever witnessed on my time in council.
And this is the Hessler incident.
Yes, ma'am. So going back to the Hessler incident, Mr. Hessler and his attempt to speak at our October 27th, 2023 council meeting. Mr. Hessler took the podium when recognized by Mayor Cowhall, as you will see. He introduced himself as the owner of Georgetown Marble and Granite Company. Just for reference, this company is the longest standing business in the entire Georgetown community. He also serves as a trustee on the village cemetery board. He was appointed to this position by our mayor, Mayor Dale Cowhall.
Okay, so we're going to mark this plaintiff's exhibit C, which is a clip of a council meeting. Is that correct?
Yes, Your Honor.
Okay.
Sure. Would you address, let council or let the viewing public know who you are, please? On the
Hold on a second. I paused that I meant to say ahead of time, there are large sections of audio missing from this. So I didn't want anybody helping us out here tonight to think that we were having technical difficulties tonight. There was technical difficulties apparently the night that this was being recorded. But you can definitely hear enough to get the point, though.
So can we fast forward?
I can't.
We can't.
For all of our meetings were we had an ad hoc committee with 3 council members and 3 citizens. They were all publicized, they were all open, and they were all live streamed. So it's not the meeting,
the council should have called. What's up, without being up?
Okay, as far as my experience with the trustees, all I was ever involved, the cemetery falls under the community development committee. And the only thing that I know that I was ever involved with you guys was setting prices. What else?
And then in the future, you're gonna be like, this is that stuff, that drive in there, that foot trails, and all these other things, and that's.
That's great. I think the sign is great. I'm glad that we scaled back on like the size and all that stuff. I think it was an efficient piece for the village. As I told you earlier, I seriously thought the sign was supposed to be out by Carter's. I thought they were the entry points of, or not Carter's, by Rumpke, and then over on close to Helden. I knew there was some issue with placing it at Helden. Yeah. And then, one coming off the hill, there was supposed to be one there, but there's one somewhere.
Was talking about giving the right of way back to Rumpke.
I knew that, but
That's because the sign wasn't going up.
I didn't agree with that.
It's not an issue of the signs.
It's where it is in the.
Which I'm standing down towards. North end.
How close would we put graves to the road?
That would be 15 feet on either side of the poles, which that's on the right edge.
And it's because that's a sign, not a grave marker.
But
Two different things.
you're right there. One was good for
It's not the same thing. One's a grave marker, one's a sign. There's one sign, there are many grave
I don't
markers.
think I have the rules in this house to me, but if you feel like we can do it.
Thank you. I have a question for you. Did you ever bring those logos up, the city Hatchet building for those other signs? Are you gonna bring them up? What are you gonna do with them?
I don't know.
They're town logos, shouldn't they have those in name form?
I mean, I'm offering, it's the same, you can take them, make it great.
Is he limited to what he can do with them since they're the town logo? Can anybody just go out and have logos maybe put them in?
But I would say if we didn't pay for them, they're probably not. Do we pay for them?
No.
They're probably not.
We should pay for them.
Yeah.
I'm not very proud about that. I'm very proud about
Well, I haven't seen you to ask you that.
the place. But I mean, it should have been a different thought.
And that came from this, it was an ad hoc committee, right? So just a clarification, it didn't technically, the whole thing didn't come from the council. I mean, obviously we approved the sign, but I think when some of us, for myself, I didn't know when the easement changed, that meant the sign was changing. I was kind of shocked myself when I saw it in the cemetery, so, but it sounds like you had 3, at-large members and then 3 people from council.
From the CDC,
Okay.
and the cemetery falls under the community development committee. It's part of our responsibility.
How does everybody else feel about the sign? Has anybody seen it? Any?
Exactly, I didn't, I thought maybe I should have. I had no idea what was going on there.
Yeah.
I just think the communication was lacking between, yeah, I think someone I do that's in and out of cemeteries daily across the tri-state. I can see how things are gonna be in the future as far as that goes. And it just should have been thought out a little better, because I don't know of I've never seen a sign like that in a cemetery where we're gonna be selling things. So, that's my personal.
If we're pertinent to the cemetery, that'd be a perfect spot, but it's not necessarily pertinent to the cemetery.
Yeah, so I mean, it's a good spot for the sign, but it's not, in the future, it's not gonna be a good spot. It's gonna be a thing to try to work around and try to, because what's gonna happen is when I'm out there in the future, if, Aaron's out there, it's gonna be, where's John Cup? He got to the sign section, and he's 3 right behind the sign to the right. That's what's gonna end up being. So, that's my opinion about that, and thank you for your time.
You are great, putting the logos to us, correct?
I was in that.
Okay, we're gonna be good.
So again, the audio was a little chopped up, and but obviously we were all there that night. I'm going to tell you what I saw in watching that video.
Well, it speaks for itself, but
Well,
tell us what that violates from your perspective.
okay. I would contend it doesn't fully speak for itself because there was that's fine. There's missing sections of audio, but
Is it your position that what was properly retained does show a violation of the code of conduct, or are there missing things that you say show a violation of the code of conduct?
no, I think there's probably enough seen there.
Okay.
You have a situation where she's accusing a business owner that's come to speak about one topic. She goes off topic to something that gentleman didn't even come to council to talk about, makes an accusation that he has something that belongs to the town. Even after getting reassurance from our village solicitor that the town has no claim to that item, the gentleman closes his conversation by thanking council, and as he's walking back to his seat, he's a second time says something, is told, well, I guess you're not going to give those back to the town, So yeah, I think it's a clear violation of our code of ethics. And to the point that I made earlier, that sometimes there's exchanges between council people and people that come to the podium. That's in another stratosphere.
Okay. In earlier meetings, had Mr. Hessler told us that he had paid for those logos?
I have no idea.
You don't know?
I don't know, and I don't think had he or hadn't he wouldn't make an excuse to attack him in that manner.
Joe clarified.
Okay.
As well.
Since Mr. Hessler had in an earlier meeting said that he had $7,000 in materials for that sign, including the logos, do you not think it was fair for us to pay him for those? Yes or no?
I think it's irrelevant to attacking him.
Okay. I don't think that was it. Well, let's see, there was something else. That's it.
At the April 13th council meeting, then Councilman Mark Anderson resigned from his position during the opening roll call. I'm sorry, April 13th of this year. In the remainder of that meeting, at no time did the members of council that were present make any provisions on how they would fill his empty seat. It was actually at the next council meeting on April 27th when the council had a conversation wherein they discussed how they would, as a whole, select a replacement for Mark Anderson. And that's that. Just to refresh everybody's memory, we kind of went back and forth about whether or not we would actually. Nancy said, hey, we need to post it on the website, and maybe we'll take some applications. And we went through the process. We would do that. That's the way it should be done. Since council as a whole is tasked with filling an empty seat, council as a whole should determine the method by which we would fill a seat, since the village charter gives us no clear guidance on that. On April 17th, though, this would be the time between the April 13th meeting when Mark resigned and the next regularly scheduled council meeting on April 27th, I received a text from Art Owens in which he asked me if I'd be available to attend a special meeting on April 25th for the purpose of filling Mark's vacant seat. I found this to be odd, since there had been no mention at the previous meeting on how the seat would be filled and no special meeting had been set up previously. I responded to Art's text and told him I was unsure if I could attend. And didn't commit to the meeting at that time. Later in the day, I had a phone call with Solicitor Braun about an unrelated matter. But in that conversation, I mentioned to him that Art had texted me, I was texting council members to check their availability for a special meeting on April 25th, 2 days before a regularly scheduled meeting. Mr. Braun responded to me that Art was doing that because Nancy Montgomery was repeatedly contacting him and urging for a special meeting to happen to place a council member before the regular scheduled meeting on April 27th. And so my point in this is not to beat a dead horse, but we once again have an instance wherein Nancy Montgomery is urging the village administrator to take actions that should be decided by the council as a whole. That's all on that topic.
All right,
Since I have no recollection of that at all, I have no questions.
Initiating a conversation that violated the Open Meetings Act will be the topic here. 1 second. Okay. So previous to this hearing, there's already been much conversation, probably too much conversation, about a text message that Nancy Montgomery sent to 3 other village council members on March 29th at 11:04 a.m. of this year. Nancy has previously maintained the stance that she sent an informational text to the other 3 council members, was not eliciting a response, and the text message did not become a conversation or discussion until I responded. I very clearly covered my stance on this topic at length in our last council meeting, but for purposes of this hearing, I will briefly address this topic again. Although I think it's far from the most relevant of charges, it's lower down on the list of relevancy and charges of the things that I'm listing tonight. There are only 2 possible ways in which you can view this incident, and both of them end with Nancy Montgomery taking part in an open meeting violation, which is prohibited by both our charter and the ORC. Either she sent a text which was not merely informational, which would be a violation, or she sent a text that was informational, but it became a violation when I answered it. I will address both scenarios. Let me pull up the text message, which I cannot wait to do.
Be plaintiff E, which is text message allegedly from Miss Montgomery. Yes.
Yes.
3/29/23.
I'm going to read it for the record, please. This is so wrong on so many levels, she says. Criticizing another law enforcement agency, especially one we depend on, is beyond unprofessional and surely is against the PD code of conduct. It exhibits very poor leadership. It is embarrassing to the PD and to the village. Thank goodness not many have reacted or commented, just a few of Matt's and unfortunately a couple of our officers. Perhaps something to address at the next Emergency Services Committee meeting. As you can clearly see, this is much more than an informational text. An informational text might have said something along the lines of, Matt posted a reply on Facebook that I think you all should see. She did much, much more than that. She called Matt's she called the Facebook post of Matt's unprofessional, which is an opinion, not a statement of fact. She suggests that it is against the police code of conduct, which is an opinion, not a statement of fact. She says that it exhibits poor leadership, which is an opinion, not a statement of fact. And she says that it's embarrassing to the police department and the village, which is an opinion and not a statement of fact. She ends by suggesting an action by a committee of council. So if you kept track of all that, that's 4 opinions rendered and 1 call to action. This is in no way an informational text. But if you want to throw all that out and not believe me, even if you don't subscribe to that theory and you want to buy into her theory that this text on its own does not violate the Open Meetings Act, let's examine further. I respond to the text. Actually, let me open that. Let's move along. Steve responds to text. Probably that one. In which, and I'll read it, this isn't an ESC issue. If there is any misconduct in this post, that would be an issue to be discussed between the mayor and the PD. If you believe that there should be a broader conversation about employees and social media posts, that would probably be some other subcommittee than the ESC. The next thing that happens is critical. She texted again. Yeah, she texted again. And I'll right here, Nancy Montgomery. That would be text number 2. Why is that critical? Because even if you're going to buy into the argument that my response turned it into an opens meeting violation, then fine, punish me for that too. Point is, and as my next, well, I'll show that here in a minute. Nancy Montgomery knows at this point, if you're going to say that I turned it into an opens meeting violation, she continues to text. So at this point, she is engaging in a conversation, knowing that it is improper. Whether I'm the one that made it improper is irrelevant and might be a topic if I were being charged with wrongdoing, but I'm not. She is. Finally, to really wrap this matter up, let me show my final response. So you had Nancy's initial text at the beginning, and this is the again and again. So I think in the previous council meeting, I may have put 1 too many agains in there. What happens is I responded to her initial text, as I've said. By the way, you can see up here, this would show who else was involved in the group message. And this looks like it does blown up on a big screen. So on my phone and in the midst of work, I have no idea who else is in this message. But it's at this point, after Nancy texts 2 more times, that Jeremy Varner joins into the conversation. And when he does that, I now realize, oh, who else? I say to myself, okay, this isn't just me and Nancy talking. Who else is in this text? I go up here and click this, and it expands, and I see that we, in fact, have 3 council people being talked to by Nancy Montgomery, which is why I pick up the phone and I call Joe Braun and actually report it. And then I text back with his blessing. I said, don't you think I maybe ought to inform Jeremy and Mike? This is an improper conversation. I don't remember that entire conversation with him, but he was like, yeah, you need to say this is wrong. I'm not doing, I'm done talking. So I texted back this. I just realized this text was sent to multiple people and that more than 3 council people are part of this text. I should have not responded and will make no further comment. Now, I'm not all about getting rid of somebody for violating the Open Meetings Act. If that were a sole offense, I think the bigger issue here is we do definitely have an open meetings violation, but just all the accusatory and everything, instead of saying I goofed up, I am sorry, and I'm sorry I actually got these people involved in this. I probably should have just picked up the phone and called Dale Cowhall if I had a concern about it. Has been all of this, which seems unnecessary. So have it either way you will. She sent a text to a quorum of council and violated the Open Meetings Act, or she responded to me and I made it an Open Meeting Act, but then she went on to continue the conversation. Again, in either case, there was a violation by her of the Open Meetings Act. That's all of that topic.
And I'll deal with that later.
You,
Okay, and I need to pull up a file for my final topic here.
In his comments, Councilmember Mays implied two things. Number one, he implied I had a personal problem with the police department. And number two, he implied that I was the one who suggested the investigation is reversed. Neither of those
I don't think
things
you
is
need to
true.
ask me the questions.
I
can
have
just read
no vendetta against the police department or against any member of the police department, and I was not the one who brought up the assessment. I was and am still offended by his behavior and his remarks.
so what did we just listen to?
A lie.
No, I mean,
Okay, you want some context. This is the end of a council meeting,
give me a date,
February 10th, 2022.
2/10/22. We're going to mark that as plaintiff's exhibit F, which is a clip from the end of a council meeting on 10 February of 22.
Yes, ma'am.
All right, got it.
Okay. Can you play that again?
Yes.
Comments, Councilmember Mays implied two things. Number one, he implied I had a personal problem with the police department. And number two, he implied that I was the one who suggested the investigation is reversed. Neither of those things is true. I have no vendetta
Thank you.
against the police department or against any member of the police department, and I was not the one who brought up the assessment. I was and am still offended by his behavior and his remarks.
So the key part of the statement that she made there that I like to focus on is when she says that she has no vendetta against the police department or any member of the police department. And I am ready to present my own testimony that would contradict that. That being that in the time that I was running to become on council, me and Nancy Montgomery had several text conversations, several phone conversations where she told me point blank that she disliked the police chief. Let me back up. On November 2nd of 2021, I believe was the date, we were in the parking lot of the Southern Hills Joint Vocational School. It was an election day, and we were there at a primary, and we were meeting people as they came in and out to vote. We spent the entire day there together. Other candidates were around us at times. Had a chance to talk throughout the whole day long. And Nancy Montgomery made it very clear to me that day that she was very anxious about winning the election. I was an uncontested candidate, so I didn't, I didn't have that nervousness to deal with. And she told me that she could not wait to be elected. She was running for a 4-year term, and she would never be running again. And she liked that gave her the freedom that she could do really whatever she wanted because she wouldn't have to worry about being reelected by her constituents. And she also said that the thing she wanted to do was to get in there and get Rob Freeland fired and Matt Staggs fired. And she talked then, which was several months before, actually specifically, it was, first off, it was at least 3 months before we ever had a council meeting and talked about having a police assessment to assess the department. She was talking 3 months before that about wanting to do an investigation on the police. Months before we had ever signed a contract with Sue Matson, you said that you wanted to get a female investigator because you thought that would really irk the males that ran the police department, and that you had enough dirt to give any investigator that would definitely get them fired. So we both get on council, and I believe around February, I think that Kelly Cornett made the suggestion that maybe we have a police assessment, and I think she made that with very good intentions. I just assume that because I know she's friends with the police chief and the captain. And there came a lot of conversation. I was a no vote on that assessment, as was Mike Mays. And in subsequent meetings, as we finally hired somebody to do the assessment, there was many heated conversations, many council meetings in a row about how we would determine the scope of how that person would conduct that investigation. And the main arguing point was whether or not we would have Ms. Matson come into a full council room and we would all sit there and tell her the things that we wanted to do in the assessment, or if we would meet with her privately and give her information that way. And the latter prevailed. And I had legitimate concerns, having been told months before that this person was chomping at the bit to have an investigation and tell these kind of things to the investigator to get a couple of people fired. Now, to be fair, that when I took one stance on having the assessment that was different than Nancy's, our conversation fell off significantly. Months later, I had, as I mentioned previously in opening, I had a disagreement with the chief of police, and that put me at odds with him and with the mayor. And then what do you know? That gives me and Nancy Montgomery some common ground again, and we're talking again. And you can track this from one council meeting to another. Things are fine. Then we get the police assessment back, and I go to an emergency services committee meeting to talk to the police officers about the things the assessment is asking them to do. And I'm blown away by how they embrace the assessment. And I have 17 items, and I'm ready to ask them which one we're going to work on first. And they've already got 8 or 9 of them done. At the next council meeting, I come back, and as we commonly do, I'm asked to give an update from the emergency services committee. And I praise the police department for their hard work on that. And that is really, from that time forward, put us back on the outs again. That this is more of a closing statement, I guess. So I'll kind of stop there. But my point being is, for Nancy on that February 10th, 2022 council meeting, and if she wants to do it again tonight under oath, that's fine. But for her to say that she has no vendetta against the police department or any member of the police department would completely contradict things she has told me multiple times.
Okay. So what you said that I had said to you, that's basically your word against mine as far as your interpretation. Correct?
You said it, so however you want to phrase it.
Do you, I don't know if this is appropriate now, but I didn't really have it later. Do you remember who called for Chief Freeland to be fired after the ticket incident? Who first brought it up?
I think several of us. Yeah, probably was. As I said, yeah, there was a time.
Do you remember me saying, what about something less? Maybe.
No, I absolutely don't remember that.
Well, I do. A suspension.
Yeah.
When you ask a question, give him a second.
Okay, sorry.
And vice versa. Okay.
Okay. You don't remember me suggesting a suspension, a demotion, something less?
I don't.
And you said no.
I
You
don't.
wanted him fired.
I don't recall that, no.
Okay. Well, that's fine. I do. There was something else this is hard for me to keep up with. It would have been, of course, well, if I'd known ahead of time what we were talking about. I'll deal with the rest of it later.
Any more cross, Ms. Montgomery?
No, not on that.
All right. I have Have you presented all the evidence that you think is relevant to council's decision?
I have.
And you are finished, or,
I think I am.
all right? And is there any objection, Ms. Montgomery, to the admission of his exhibits, which
No, not at all.
are A through E, I think. Receipt F. Okay, so I'm gonna admit into evidence exhibits A through F. And you rest, as they say on TV?
Yeah, do I still have a chance and I will still get to close?
Yes.
Okay. So yes, I've asked.
So they're finished with their half of the case. Ms. Montgomery, this is your opportunity to offer your testimony or anything else that you think may be
Okay.
relevant.
As I said,
request
since
a
I was
real
given
brief
no
recess?
charges.
Recess.
Give me a second. He's asked for a real brief recess.
Okay.
Okay, any objection to that?
No.
Let's make it really quick. We'll give the court reporter. And as far as any women in the gallery, do not get ahead of me. To the restroom, okay? If we're going to be friends.
Hey, you better run.
All right, we're in recess.
All the way downstairs.
Yes.
Yes. Are you leaving?